Hi, I'm Stevan, Arychuk. I head up information security, compliance, and site operations for Reclaim. We're pretty excited and proud of this. It's a pretty big push-up for an organization our size. So essentially, SOC 2 is a industry certification by the AICPA. They have a set of what they call trust services criteria that essentially assesses how you handle privacy, information security, customer data. These trust services criteria are essentially in these categories of like security, availability, processing integrity, and confidentiality, and the primary one, which is privacy. About a little over a year ago, we got our SOC 2 Type 1 certification, and then we followed that on this year with our Type 2. And the difference between the Type 1 and Type 2 is you can kind of think of it as Type 1 is a kind of like a point in time. Kind of think of it as a picture. So, we have a set of controls against all those criteria and how we protect our customers' data. And the SOC 2 Type 2 is kind of like a movie. So they look back, the auditors will look back, and in our case, they look back over 9 months, and they essentially sampled data against that criteria to make sure that that we were meeting that. So it was a lot more kind of intensive, and it really sort of validated a lot of the controls that we put into place. So against all of those criteria, they have a certain set of kind of like I believe they're called the trust service criteria, that they use to test all of those things. And if any of those controls failed, they're noted in the report as exceptions. So say, for example, we have a control that for every employee that we hire, we do a background check. And so the auditors, they said, give us a list of all the new employees you had, and they will check to make sure the background checks were done. If they weren't done in some case, that would be noted as an exception in the report. So essentially, no exceptions means that for all of the things that they tested, and there are, literally hundreds of these controls that we had to submit evidence for, there were none that were failed. That essentially is kind of validation of the audit process, and that all the controls we have put in place are actually effective in doing what they're supposed to. So, SOC 2 Type 2 again is sort of the industry standard, but I would say more importantly, we treat our users' privacy and security with a great amount of trust and respect. When our users give us access to their calendar, we don't take that lightly. And so, we have put, from day one, we've treated, we like to say the privacy and security is kind of gold zero at Reclaim. We build our products around that. It's, part of our brand, it's part of our privacy policy. We never sell user data. And essentially, SOC 2 is sort of a third-party industry standard to validate a lot of those claims. Where it really comes into play are larger companies that start to evaluate using Reclaim. They often have some sort of, vendor certification or qualification process. They want to make sure that we can, attest to a lot of these claims that we're making. And the SOC 2 report is essentially usually one of the first things that we provide. In many cases, that's often enough for them to feel comfortable using Reclaim. And by comfortable, mean that they are happy with the way that the controls and stuff that we put in place to manage their data. Again, I can't understate how much gravitas and how much responsibility we assume when users give us access to their calendar. We've put a lot of controls in place that go beyond SOC 2, really. For example, nobody in the company has unrestricted access to customer data. Every single access to the database, to the production database, which is where we store all of our calendar data, has to be approved by either myself or the CEO or our head of engineering. And we do this by using some interesting technologies like Tailscale and Indent. You can look on Tailscale's blog. I did a fairly lengthy blog post about how and why we do this, which is somewhat helpful. The key takeaway is that SOC 2 is sort of validation of a lot of the things we put in place, but it's really not the only thing. I think some organizations might look at SOC 2 as a bit of a checkmark box, but we look at it as another validation perspective that we're doing a lot of the things that we say we do on our security page. So we're pretty transparent about everything. Most everything is on our primary website. You can reach it at Reclaim.ai/privacy. You can also see it at Reclaim.ai/security. And then we've recently launched something called a Trust Center. You can find that at trust.reclaim.ai. And that actually has a lot of the artifacts and things that the auditors used. We do have it behind an NDA, but it's just really for legal reasons. We are often very open with our security posture. And I provide not only our SOC 2 report, but things like our penetration test, often copies of our security policies, and things like that to customers and really anyone else who is interested. We have a pretty active group for security at Reclaim.ai. The co-founders, myself, and a couple other people monitor that. And anybody who has questions can send info there. There also feel free to reach out to me directly at Stevan@Reclaim.ai. Cool. Yeah, thanks so much for watching. Again, any questions about our security or privacy practice, feel free to reach out to security at Reclaim.ai or myself. And happy to talk to our customers more.